This is Adam Bilby presenting Scrumble Beginnings Sprint 1 Achievements. So I am the Scrum Master for this group, and we'll also be seeing presentations from Garrett Clement, Daniel Rose, and Matlock White. So I tackled the epic user stories of getting a user interface set up, like a start menu, at least the very beginnings of it, and I also worked on getting the sounds working. So the child user stories were as a player, I would like to hear the player character walking so that I may feel more immersed in the game. When the player character moves left while on the ground, a stepping sound plays. When the character stops moving, there are no longer stepping sounds. When the character moves right while on the ground, a stepping sound plays. Um, so as you can see, the walking noises are happening while this character is walking, and they stop when this character stops. As a player, I would like to hear the player character jumping so that I feel more immersed in the game. When the key corresponding to the jump action are pressed while player characters jumping, additional jump noises are not played. And when the player character jumps in the air, a sound is played. So, and right here, I'm holding down the jump button, and we're not getting multiple sounds. As a player character, I would like to hear the player character landing so that I feel more immersed in the game. When the player character lands from a jump, a sound plays. So, it makes a landing noise when he falls. As a player, I'd like to hear the player character attacking so that I feel more immersed in the game. When the player character attacks, the sound plays. As a player, I'd like to be able to start the game by clicking the start button. When the start button is pressed, the game starts.
Hello, my name is Garrett Clement, and I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about our game and our main character in there and some of the functionality we added this week. So, the first user story. As a player, I want to be able to press keys so that I can move my character left and right. Acceptance criteria. The player moves to the right by 10 pixels when the right arrow key is pressed. The player moves to the left 10 pixels with the left arrow key pressed, and for each of the two arrow keys, the player moves continuously as the key is pressed down. So if we go ahead and click our right arrow key, we can see we moved about 10 pixels, and if we click our left arrow key, we moved about 10 pixels. If we hold down our right arrow key, we're running continuously to the right, and if we hold down our left arrow key, we're running continuously to the left. The next user story. As a player, I want to be able to press a key so that I can make my character jump. Acceptance criteria. The player moves up at a rate of 12 pixels when the arrow key is pressed. The player moves up until he reaches 200 pixels and then begins to fall. So if we come over here and click the up arrow key, we move up at roughly 10 or 12 pixels, and once we hit 200, we started to fall. The next user story. As a player, I want to be able to press keys while I am jumping so that I can make my character move left and right. Acceptance criteria. The player moves to the right 5 pixels when the arrow key is pressed and the player is jumping. The player moves to the left 5 pixels when the left arrow key is pressed and the player is jumping. And for each of the two arrow keys, the player moves continuously as the key is pressed down. So if we go ahead and jump and click to the left, we move roughly 5 pixels. If we jump and click to the right, we move about 5 pixels. Then if we hold it down, we're moving at a rate of 5 pixels left and right. The next user story. As a player, I want to press a key so that I can do a quick attack. Acceptance criteria. The player performs a quick attack to the right when the F key is pressed and the player is facing right. The player performs a quick attack to the left when the F key is pressed and the player is facing left. So if we move our character to the right, we'd be facing to the right, and if we click the F key, we do a right attack. If we hold or move to the left, we'd be facing left, and we click the F key, we then perform a left attack. That's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a good day.
Hi, my name is Daniel Rose, and I'm here to go over my user stories for Sprint 1. So mine all had to do with animation and getting the basic framework for how we're going to draw animations on the screen to show that our game figures are moving around left and right. So mine are going to be demonstrated at the level of nen, but the implementation is higher up the inheritance tree at game figure, so that any game figure can inherit the same code to render itself moving around in the animation. So we broke this into some child user stories, so let's take a look at those. The first one is that as nen, I want to render the idle animation as long as I am not receiving any commands from the player. So the acceptance criteria here is pretty straightforward, that when idle, nen renders the idle animation. The second one here, triggering the idle animation causes the frame counters for the other animations to be reset. So each one of these animations is just a sequence of images. So whenever one gets queued up, we're switching out arrays of images, and we want to make sure that we never jump into the middle of one of the arrays. Essentially, it's saying we want to make sure that the animations are switching between one another smoothly and they're not stepping on each other's toes. Now, pretty much all the animations in my user stories are going to have really similar acceptance criteria, basically the same form. And because a big part of the acceptance criteria is how they switch in between one another, there's really no way to demonstrate the acceptance criteria of one without sort of showing the other, because they're all sort of jumbled together. So because of that, I'm going to go through them all first, and then we'll sort of demonstrate them all at once, and I think it'll make more sense that way. So on that note, our next user story is that as nen, as long as the left arrow key is held down, I should be rendering the moving left animation so that my character appears to be moving left. Again, the same sort of acceptance criteria, which want to make sure that we're rendering the right animation and that we're not stepping on any of the other animation's toes. And we'll be able to see this, we'll be able to make sure that we're hitting that second bullet point, because the animations will look fluid and will never start in the middle of an animation, and they switch back and forth just fine. So then we got the same one for moving right. Now the reason I felt like this could be a separate user story for moving left is because in the code there's separate arrays, so they're really separate bits of code that are, and there's a little bit of different logic. There's different logic paths that the code's going to follow based on moving left or moving right, so they could give rise to bugs independently. So I want to make sure to test them independently to make sure that they both are working correctly and both are rendering what we want and not getting in the way of any of the other animations rendering. And then finally we have the jump animation. As nen, I want to render a jump animation when the spacebar is pressed so that I appear to be jumping. And again, acceptance criteria, make sure we're getting the jump animation rendered, and it renders while we're in the air, and that we don't cause any of the other animations to get messed up. We don't get stuck in any particular animation. So one thing about this jump animation is we don't have art for it yet. So instead of, you won't actually see, it doesn't look like he's jumping. What I've done instead is I've just added red text saying jumping over all of the images that are in the jump animation array, so it will be clear when we're seeing images from the jump animation array, so that we know that we are indeed calling the right array. And had we just put the art of him jumping in there, everything will be good to go. So we know that we're meeting the criteria and it's working. So on that note, let's take a look at some demonstration here. So I've got client pulled up. Let's start it up, and we start, and I've gotten rid of the enemies at first so that you can see everything fine, but I'll do another quick run through with the enemies just to show that it does work with the enemies and that adding those doesn't break anything. So right off the bat, you can see we've got the idle animation going, not giving any input, and then just sitting there. He seems to be doing just fine. So there, I'm hitting the left arrow key, and you can see the moving left animation is happening, and then the moving right animation comes up as well. And the important thing here is that as I go from idle to moving left and idle to moving right, when I go back into moving left, you can see I always start at the beginning, and anytime I let go, I'm immediately going back to the idle animation and in the middle of the idle animation. And then finally we've got jump. So again, you can just see he stops idling and you get that red text of jump to let you know that we are in the jump animation array. And jumping can go into idle, there's run into jump, running right into jump, and then from the jump we can land and go right into moving left. From the jump we can land and go right into moving right. And all the while we never mess up one of our other animations or start in the middle of any of the other animations. So we know that we've hit all of our acceptance criteria here. Once we get some more art sorted out, right now the idle animation looks the best because we still just have this concept art for the moving left and right. We'll get some better art on that soon. So real quick, just to make sure that the enemies don't cause this to be messed up in any way, let's uncomment this. Now the enemies aren't using, we don't have the animation frames for them, so their animations are even more crude right now, but as you can see, even with the enemies, we've still got all of our functionality here as far as the animations are concerned, ninja jumping and moving. So I feel pretty good that we've got a basic framework for our animations in place, and with that, thank you very much for watching.
Hello, my name is Matlock White, and today I'm going to be walking you through the child user stories of our enemy archetype named Rai for Sprint 1. Now, Rai should have 4 different state criteria for this match. He should have a hit state, steel twister, throw state, and viper strike, as well as a movement state. Now, if Nin is to the left or to the right of Rai, he should move 5 pixels in accordance with whichever direction Nin is from him. If he's if he's greater than 50 pixels to the left of Rai, the Rai should move to the left 5 pixels at a time, and vice versa for right. Once Nin is within a 50 pixel range of Rai, Rai should attack with a viper strike. Should Nin get out of range after Rai has already launched a Viper Strike, then Rai should return to a default combat state. If Nin is still within range after a 50 pixel range after Rai has launched a Viper Strike, Rai should then attack again using a Steel Twister. Regardless of Nin's current location after Rai launches a Steel Twister, Rai should then return to a default combat state. Should Nin actually be within a 25 pixel range of Rai, Rai, instead of attacking with Viper Strike, should then attack with a throw. Regardless, after a throw is performed, Rai should then return to a default combat state. And we shall show you the end result. Here you see Nin. Rai is located with those 2 enemies. As you can see, this is Viper Strike, that's Steel Twister. If we move closer to them, that would be their throw. As we move away from Rai, Rai starts chasing Nin. Rai has no jump, so that plays effect in how the game will be played out. Again, that is Viper Strike, Steel Twister, and there's his throw. As you can see, if we move out of range after he launches into it, he immediately starts following and stops his attacks. Thank you very much. You have a good evening.
So overall, we made some good progress on getting the fundamental systems for our application together, with animations, sound, an enemy, and a player character that can work in an environment together. Thank you very much for watching.